Hey everyone, Chris here and welcome to my channel and welcome to this week's reading vlog. So it is officially December 7th, which means it is time to read my Queer Lit Readathon TBR. I am very excited to read all of the queer books. I'm still waiting on one of them to come in the mail, so fingers crossed it gets here in the next couple of days so that I have time to read it. I have a very eclectic mix on there and it's going to be interesting because as it stands right now, I am very close to being done with The Missing Sword, and I would kind of like to read the end of the story, which is the fifth and final book in this series this week, which are not queer and not on my Queer Lit Readathon TBR. And I need to read The Thread That Binds, which is queer, but is not on my Queer Lit Readathon TBR. And I believe the ebook copy goes back to the library on the 9th, so Tuesday. And there are 17 people in line, so if I'm going to read it and finish it, I need to do it now. So that is going to make things interesting, and I am playing Libby Chicken with the third and final book in the Green Wild series as well. So I'm going to need to step up my game. I also am trying to catch up on all of these videos. Like, I want to be caught up going into January. And I said in last week's vlog, I don't know if that's realistic, but I'm going to give it a good try, which means I'm going to be focusing also on filming, editing, and uploading. So y'all, wish me luck. I am going to need it, but I think the first thing I'm going to do is try to finish The Missing Sword and The Thread That Binds. And because The Thread That Binds is an ebook, I might continue with the last book in the series and the Green Wild books, since I have the audiobooks for those, and see if I can smash those out by like Tuesday and then spend the rest of the week focusing on my Queer Lit Readathon TBR. So y'all, it is going to be a long week, but it could be a very productive week if I get my butt in motion and actually focus on what I need to focus on, as opposed to, I don't know, doom scrolling on my phone or watching Blood on the Clock Tower. So we'll see how it goes, and I will try to check in a few days and give you an update. So it is 1:45 in the morning on Thursday. So we are just over halfway through this week. I'm exhausted, y'all. I have been so busy with videos. I have officially decided that I have to post a video every day for the rest of the month to be caught up, and I'm going to try my best, but it is taking a lot out of me. So reading has taken a slight backseat. So we're going to see if I can power through Thursday, Friday, and Saturday and get this TBR done. But before we go on to that, I was in the midst of a couple books at the beginning of this week that I needed to finish because I was playing Libby Chicken. The first one I'm going to mention is The Missing Sword. I don't think I was playing Libby Chicken with this one. I think I was just almost done with it. I ended up giving this 2 stars. This is by far my least favorite book in the series. If I didn't have plans for the 5th book, I'm not sure I would read it, but we're going to give it a go and see if it can redeem things. This book went places that I really, 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 really did not like. There are 2 points to the way this wrapped up that I just was not a fan of. Obviously, I can't talk about it because giant spoilers, but one of them might be more of an age thing, and this is written for a younger audience, so it could be I'm not connecting with that because of my age. The other was just a twist that I didn't like. So we're going to see. I was expecting this to be in like a 3.5 star territory. And it's sad because there were components to this book that I did really enjoy. It's just, I can't handle the way the book ended. It brought my rating down so much. So we'll see where we end up with book 5. A book I was definitely playing Libby Chicken with was The Forest in the Sky. This is the 3rd and final book in the Green Wild series, and I gave this 4.5 stars. I really enjoyed how this story ended. This series follows Daisy. In the first book, Daisy is living with just her mom. Her mom is like a scientist or explorer. I don't remember what her mom's actual job title is, but they travel a lot for it. And there is an opportunity for her mom related to her job, and this time she says it's not safe for Daisy to come. So she leaves Daisy behind at, I believe, a school. And then Daisy finds out that her mom is missing and presumed dead. And some things go on that make her realize she's not safe. She comes across a cat she dubs Napoleon, and while running from these people that she feels like are chasing her, ends up crossing into the Green Wild and realizes there's this whole other world, and it ties into what happened to her mom. I really enjoyed how this series played out. I love the relationships Daisy makes throughout the series. They are very, very important to how things play out in this book, and I thought it was really, really well done. 100% would recommend this series if you enjoy middle grade fantasies with a portal and green magic and a really strong friend group. There were twists in this that I kind of saw coming, but it didn't lessen my enjoyment of them, so very much recommend this series. Then I took a break from all of the heavier books and the thicker books and read The Littlest Yak. I gave this 5 stars. This was really, really cute. So this follows Gertie, who is the littlest yak in her herd and cannot wait to grow up and is trying to do everything to get big and strong like the rest of her herd, until one day something happens and her being little is the exact thing the herd needs, and she realizes that maybe there are benefits to being little after all. I thought this was a really sweet story about this little yak who was yearning to grow up and kind of realized by the end of the book that she is perfect exactly how she is in this moment in time and really needs to embrace that. I thought the art was really cute. Like, super cute, and this just was a very fun book, and it is a series, and I will 100% continue it when I need a new picture book, because I have found in 2025 that it's really nice sometimes to just take a break and lose yourself in a picture book for like 5 to 10 minutes. So we'll be reading this series at some point next year, I'm sure. Then I read another picture book, but this time my one for the Queer Lit Readathon, Sparkle Boy, and I gave this 4.25 stars. So this follows siblings Casey and Jessie. And Casey is really into sparkling things, and Jessie thinks that's a bit weird, especially when there are things that don't really fit with her view of what a boy is. And throughout the book, we see Casey really embrace the sparkly side of life, and Jessie coming to terms with the idea that just because Casey is a little boy doesn't mean he can't enjoy the sparkle. I thought this was a really good book about challenging gender norms and learning to really embrace who you are and love yourself, and teaching others acceptance of you embracing the things that you love. I love how supportive everybody around Casey is about him loving all of these sparkly things, and how it teaches Jessie a lesson throughout the book to look beyond that and just to see her brother's happiness and how much he loves being a part of these things. So really enjoyed the message in this book. I wasn't as big a fan of the art style, but I had a good time with this one. Then the biggest book I was playing Libby Chicken with was The Thread That Binds, and I gave this 4.25 stars. So this book is set in a fantasy world in a queer normative society, and I really loved right off the bat how there were queer characters all over the place. So many characters in this book use er pronouns, and I thought that was absolutely amazing because it meant I immersed myself in those pronouns, and I think seeing them and reading them to myself is helping me get more familiar with how they're used and when, and making them more common in my vocabulary. So absolutely loved that. And this is set at the Eternal Library, where there are these books, and everybody who works at the library has some sort of ability. And we follow our three main characters. So we have Tabby, who is applying to be an apprentice at the Eternal Library and has the ability to learn things through dreaming. We have Amani, who is also applying to be an apprentice at the library, and she has the ability to interact with spirits and to use oracle cards to commune with spirits, but can also be possessed by them and sense them around her. And then there's Rhiannon, who already works at the library and has, I think it's called precognition. E can touch an object and read its past. And Rhiannon and Tabby are in a, I believe, queer platonic relationship, though I don't know that that term is ever used. But it is definitely a platonic relationship, but they're like dating. So I would say queer platonic relationship. And the three of them are going to have to deal with some stuff that is going down at the library that involves a very old book that went missing a long time ago. And each of them showing up is somehow going to change the trajectory of what's happening with this book. I had a really, really fun time with this. I liked seeing each of their POVs. It was interesting to see all of the different things that were going on because each of them had a different perspective of the events as they were playing out. I really enjoyed the supporting cast and the characters that our main POVs had to interact with, and how each of them had their own distinct relationship with these people. I really liked the relationship that developed between our three main characters. I thought that added a lot to the book as you saw them get to know each other in the case of Amani and Tabby and Amani and Rhiannon. And we got to understand the relationship that existed between Rhiannon and Tabby. This is not an easy read. There are a lot of trigger warnings, and I would share them with you if it wasn't for the fact that I had to send the ebook back. But I would highly recommend, if you want to read this book, to check out the trigger warnings, because there's a lot, and the author is very thorough about letting you know what those trigger warnings are. So keep that in mind before you pick up this book. I really enjoyed the way this story came together, seeing these bits and pieces and getting to learn more about each of their abilities and how they allow them to do some of the same things. Because like I said, Tabby and Amane are applying to be apprentices and they're competitors. So they're applying for the same job. And it's just really intriguing to see how all of that shakes out. I cannot wait to read the second book. I really am curious to see how that one plays out as well. So very much would recommend this. The only reason it doesn't have a slightly higher rating is because there were points in time where I felt it was a little bit slow, but otherwise I had a fantastic time with this book. Though I will mention there were parts that were hard to read because, like I said, check their trigger warnings. They are there for a reason. Then I read Rough Pages, and I gave this 4.25 stars. This is the third book in the Evander Mills series. And in this series, we follow Andy, who is a gay man living in San Francisco in the 1950s. In the first book, he has recently been caught during a raid at a gay bar and been thrown off the police force and gets roped into a case at Lavender House, which kind of starts his idea of being a private detective. I was reading this for the Queer Lit Readathon's prompts for detective and historical. And in this one, he is contacted by somebody he met in a previous book who knows of a local bookstore that has a book service that caters to queer individuals with queer stories, which back in this time period is very dangerous. The owners have gone missing, and the client that hires Andy knows there is a book that contains the names and information of so many queer people who are involved in this. And of course, anybody who is around them could be implicated. So he wants Andy to see if he can find out what happened to the owners and locate this book of names. He starts looking into it and realizes that there was somebody that wanted to stop the owners of the bookshop from sending out their next book, and it leads him not just to the feds, but the mafia. And while he is trying to navigate all of that while keeping himself safe, because he is still not safe around members of the force, he bumps into a nosy reporter who remembers him from his days as a cop and is now wondering why he no longer works for the force. So now he also has to deal with that and trying to keep his sexuality under wraps. I quite enjoyed this one. I have found with this series, I am less interested in the cases and more interested in Andy's journey and Andy's relationships that he's building. The cases are fine and I don't dislike them. But the thing that really draws me to this series is Andy as a person and how he navigates the things that are happening around him and the people he is forced to interact with. This book had a lot of that from both characters he knew from past books and characters that were introduced in this book. I just really, really like Andy as a character, and as long as I continue to feel an attachment to him and care about his story, I will keep reading these books. So very much looking forward to reading book 4 in 2026. Then I read Guarding Gus, which I gave 3 stars. So this follows Nico, who is a transgender man and is enjoying a quiet life being a bonsai bodyguard. And one night he ends up meeting Brant, who is a cookie guard, in the aftermath of a territory dispute. And on the night they meet, they end up coming across an abandoned baby gargoyle named Gus and have to figure out where he came from, who he belongs to, and what they are going to do with him. And so the two of them end up meeting some different characters along the way who help in their journey to keep baby Gus safe. I had high hopes for this one, and it was just kind of meh. There wasn't really anything wrong with it, but I didn't get attached to the characters. I wasn't sucked into the story. I feel like if I had been physically reading this, I would have set it down, walked away, and forgot I was even in the middle of it. Luckily, I had the audiobook, so that kept me going, but I wasn't completely focused on it the way I would a book that I was massively invested in. So while it wasn't a bad book, it wasn't one that really connected with me and drew me in. This is also the first book in the series, and I will not be continuing the series. I believe the only prompt I was reading this for was fantasy, so I was able to check off another prompt. So I think that means I've completed 4, because picture book, detective, historical, and fantasy. I did, however, start my book for pansexual main character by starting the Dandelion and the Thistle. I am only 27 pages in, so I don't have much to say, but we're going to be following Addison and Colin, who are both makers and will be interacting at the makers market where once a month they sell their wares. So far, I'm intrigued by the setup, but we'll see where it goes. Again, I'm not even 30 pages in yet, so a lot could change on this one. So that is my current check-in. I have so much I need to do, and I wish I had more time to devote to reading, but alas, I really do want to get caught up with videos, and there's certain videos that just have to come out. Like, for instance, today I had to put out the announcement for Phase Out Your Series-a-thon Year 2, so that was a priority. And then last night, I had filmed that along with my Donner's Winter Wonderland TBR and my Rockies Rainbow Readathon TBR, and now I have to look forward to filming the announcement for Phase Out Your TBR for January and picking out books and putting up an announcement video for the poll for the first choice for the revamped Rockies Rainbow Book Club. So just lots to do. Although tonight during Dynamite, I did take a slight break and built another Lego. This time I have a winter gazebo, and I think it's really, really cool how these get put together. And we have our little band on the front. So very much enjoying my Legos and wishing I could spend more time doing that and less time watching myself back. I hate editing, and I'm really tired of my face, but we're going to keep with it, and we're going to see how close I can get to being caught up by the end of 2025. So I'm going to go so I can go do some more editing or maybe reading. We'll see. And I will check back in with you at the end of the week and wrap this vlog up. is Sunday, and that means that this round of the Queer Lit Readathon is officially over. And I got to most of my TBR. The only one I didn't get to was All of Us Murderers, which I was reading for 16 letters, but because it could be 16 or more, I had that covered with other books, so I just slotted one of those in there. Otherwise, I did end up finishing my TBR. So first up, I finished Who Was Harvey Milk, and I gave this 4.5 stars. I was reading this for Pride Flag on the cover, and this is a Who HQ book, which is a middle grade nonfiction, and it looks at the life of Harvey Milk. I thought it was quite interesting to learn more about Harvey's life. I would love to continue my journey, and one of the cool things about Who HQ books is they have a bibliography at the back, so I have some options that I can draw from if I wanted to dig deeper in this. I think it gives a very good overview, as Who HQ books usually do, and like I said, I feel like I came out of this knowing more about Harvey than when I went in. Then for season, I read Make You Mine This Christmas. I gave this 4 stars. This follows Half, who is having a really rough year, and it leads to her drunkenly kissing Christopher under the mistletoe in front of his ex, and when it gets back to his family that they are the real deal and he's madly in love, Half, having no better plans for Christmas, agrees to go along with the charade and pretend that she and Christopher are a couple. Unfortunately, on her journey there, she meets a woman she is attracted to at a train station, and upon arriving at Christopher's family's home, finds out that the woman at the train station just so happens to be his sister Kit, which makes this Christmas a little more complicated than she had originally planned. I had a good time with this. I really liked the dynamic between Christopher and Half and Kit and Half. I thought that was really well done. I really liked Christopher's family. I liked the disability representation in this book, as Kit has Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, and the author states in the author's note that Half is autistic and just hasn't been diagnosed. So that is something that's on page, and I think that is a really nice addition. This is a familiar trope I've read in other books, and I thought this one was executed well, and I had a good time with it. So if this is a trope you like in your romances, I would recommend this one. Then I read Hijab Butch Blues, and I gave this 4 stars. I was reading this for BIPOC nonfiction, and this follows Lamia, who, when she was 14, realizes she has a crush on her female teacher, and suddenly has to deal with that. In her culture, being queer is not something that is accepted, and her story draws strength and hope from stories in the Quran. And so we get those stories on page, which I thought was really interesting, and I love seeing how Lamia related them to her own life. I really enjoyed getting to learn about Lamia and her story, and learning more about how Lamia dealt with the fact that being queer wasn't accepted in her society, and how she drew strength from the Quran and related that to what she was going through. So would very much recommend this, and I had a good time with it. Then I read, spoiler alert, The Hero Dies, and I gave this 4.5 stars. I was reading this for TBR Oldie and Debut, and this is a memoir that Michael Ausiello wrote about his relationship with his partner, Kit, and what the two of them had to endure when Kit was diagnosed with a nasty form of cancer that would eventually take his life. This had me in tears. It made me super emotional. I thought Michael did a very good job of presenting his and Kit's story, really laying out the truth of their relationship. I love how we got to see glimpses into their past, because it starts off right around when Kit gets the diagnosis, but we do go back to see how they met, how their relationship developed, some of the hurdles they had to face prior to this. And I just really got invested in their relationship and Kit as a person, and I knew that he didn't make it, but I was rooting for him the whole time. So I got very emotionally invested in this, and it is a hard read, but I'm really, really glad that the Queer Lit Readathon this round reminded me it was on my TBR and got me to pick it up, because I found it really impactful, and I am so glad to have read their story. Then I read The Lonely Book, and I gave this 4.5 stars. I was reading this for bookish and middle grade. So this book follows Annie, her 2 moms, and her sibling who run this bookshop, and there is magic in this bookshop. Every morning there will be a pile of books that has magically appeared overnight, and their future owners eventually walk in through the day and they can pass them off, until one day a book shows up and nobody shows up to claim it, and it continues to sit there, and they call it The Lonely Book because it's lonely. It doesn't have its owner. It's not in the right hands. And the magic of the shop starts to go haywire, and Annie starts to get really worried about how their moms and their sibling are reacting to this. And so we see Annie trying to deal with all of her feelings about what is going on. This book is also a fast read because of the style it's written in, and I really enjoyed the story of this. I really liked Annie and her relationship with her moms and her relationship with her sibling. I liked seeing how she worked through her feelings about what was going on. She also experiences selective mutism, so we had some disability rep in there with that. This was a really interesting way to tell a story about this lonely book and the person whose hands it needed to be in. And I had a really, really good time reading this and following along with Annie's story. Then I read Tim Tomorrow and the Subterranean Heartsick Blues, and I give this 4.5 stars. I was reading this for Southern Hemisphere. This was a book that was one of the group books for a previous round of the Queer Lit Readathon. And I had wanted to read it, but couldn't get my hands on it. I didn't have access to it. And so when this prompt came up, I went, oh, well, this is the perfect time. I can finally get to this since the library now has it. And I'm so glad I did because I gave it 4.5 stars. I really, really enjoyed this book. So this book follows Tim, and he goes to the Fox Glacier High School for the Magically Adept. And a big assignment is coming up where he and his girlfriend are going to have to raise an egg baby. Unfortunately, on the eve of this, his girlfriend breaks up with him. So he is approached by Elliot, a guy he has never gotten along with, to see if they can team up for this project because Elliot had been hooking up with the guy that Tim's girlfriend dumped him for. And while Tim isn't really sure about working with Elliot, he does think that Elliot has a point that is probably going to be easier than working with his ex, so he agrees. And while he's unsure about being partnered with Elliot, he soon realizes he also kind of wants to kiss him. And when Elliot ends up offering a no-strings-attached hookup so that Tim can explore his bisexuality, Tim decides to take him up on it, and so they start hooking up while raising this egg baby. I had such a good time with this. I really, really loved the relationship between Tim and Elliot. I love how the egg baby factored into this story. I thought their friends were really interesting, and I like how they contributed to the story as well. I liked learning about the magic in this world and getting to see how that affected their relationship. This was just a really fun time. I flew through it, and I am so incredibly glad that the Queer Lit Readathon put this one on my radar. Then I read The Dandelion and the Thistle, and I gave this 4.5 stars. I was reading this for Pan main character. I was partway through this the last time I talked to you, and I did end up finishing it, and I absolutely adored it. I love the relationship that developed between Addison and Colin. These two had a lot to deal with. I think, yes. There is a lengthy trigger warning page, and so these two characters have not had the easiest paths before meeting each other, and I love that that plays into their relationship and the conversations they have around that. Their relationship felt very authentic in the way it developed. They both have some really amazing friends as well that are very important to the story and how things play out. I love that they are both creative individuals who meet at this maker's market and are working for themselves, and how they both are very supportive of each other's endeavors. So one of the cool things I liked about this book is that Colin makes playlists for Addison. And as you can see, we have the playlist here, and we have QR codes so you can actually listen to the songs on the playlist, which I just thought was really, really cool to include these playlists and to make it easy for us to have access to the playlist with not just the songs on it, but like a QR code if we wanted to scan that. So I thought that was a nice addition. This, despite being heavy and having heavier topics, actually was a really sweet book, and I will 100% be continuing on with this series. And then the last book I finished was Boys Won the Riot Volume 2, and I was reading this for the Choose Your Own Prompt manga and translated, and I gave this 3.5 stars. We continue following our main character, Rio, and in the first book, he, along with a classmate, start a fashion brand, and so we're continuing to see their journey as they try to get this brand off the ground. I think some very interesting things happen to Rio in this one, and I'm curious to see how those things play out in the third book. This definitely left on a cliffhanger, and so now I really, really want to know what happens and where things go. So definitely will be finishing this series in 2026. And that is everything I read. I didn't start anything else. I don't have anything else to mention. But I got all of the books in that I wanted to get in. Just barely squeezed them in there at the end, but I did finish. I want to thank you, Kathy, once again for hosting. This is one of my favorite readathons. I love getting to diversify my queer reading and seeing what everybody else is reading because I find tons of queer recs that way. So thank you for hosting. And I look forward to taking part in both rounds next year. That, however, is going to be all for this vlog. All of my social media is linked in the description below if you'd like to come chat with me. If you've made it this far in the video, leave me flower emojis in honor of the dandelion and the thistle. Like this video and subscribe to my channel, and I'll talk to you next time. Bye!